Hey, peace everyone. This is Illmatical, broadcasting to you live and direct from NYC, top of NYC, Harlem, New York. So, title of this video, Passport Bros versus so-called black men who travel. And I'm making this video because I am a so-called black man from America who has traveled and lived abroad, and I don't consider myself a part of the Passport Bros movement. That being said, I have nothing against the Passport Bros. More power to these brothers. More power to them. But my interest in travel is not about. Didn't get initiated because of any frustrations with American women. And I think that's a big thing. That also, I was watching a video today on YouTube about travel, and the person who made the video mentioned that there was this brother living in China. He got into some trouble, but he had been living in China for like a decade, and he got married, and the guy called him a passport bro. And I think that there is a misconception that all so-called black men who are traveling are passport bros. So I wanted to weigh on this because I was thinking about making this for a while. And I think it's something that needs to be addressed now, based on what I saw, because I was a part of several Facebook groups over the last 2 years about black men traveling, and I was trying to advertise my book. And on some of these groups, I saw initially Passport Bros was called the Travel Gang, right? And the whole focus of the Travel Gang was getting women. That's all it was. I mean, Passport Bros, no knock to brothers who are part of the Passport Bros movement, but it just seems like the focus of the Passport Bros is going to different countries and, looking for different women. And more power to these brothers. I think some of these brothers are like, hey, I'm just going to leave the country, every 3 or 4 months and go see women outside the country. I'm not even gonna be bothered with American women, and that's fine. Because when I look at these brothers, a lot of them on these videos, they look happy. Their money's together, and they have the ability to go out of the country. And so, if they have that ability, there's nothing wrong with that. The only thing. And the other thing is that I think it's more about them taking. So there's people who are taking vacations every few months. Years ago, I mentioned this in my book, but one of the guys I used to roll with, I remember when he first came back from Brazil, and he was just like, he's done with American women. And this was 2003 or 4. Okay, so there weren't any Passport Bros or anything like that. This was like when LeBron first came into the league, and he was saying this, and he was just like, he's just looking at new countries and stuff. So this whole Passport Bros movement is kind of old, but I think it's just got this new label, and a lot of brothers like myself who are not Passport Bros who travel are being, I think, put into this category of Passport Bros. And the other thing is, I think a lot of the Passport Bros have like a hive mentality. If all the brothers are going to DR, then they're gonna go to DR. If everyone's quote unquote going to Thailand or Colombia, then that's where they're gonna go. They're gonna go wherever the hot place is. I think that so-called black men who travel typically put their interests before the women. They have personal interests and goals, and the women come second. Their women are, secondary aside from their purpose and their goals. They have travel goals. They're interested in perhaps going to a country for a particular reason, and they're interested in pursuing their particular goals. These brothers have also lived outside of the country, maybe for 6 months or a year or more. I was a part of, as I mentioned, I was part of a lot of Facebook groups, and a lot of guys would always post messages on the group saying that they were official now that they had their passport. And then other people were saying, you're not official until you get a stamp. And, I thought it was funny because in certain countries I've lived in, a lot of the expats in the community don't even mess with you until you've been in the country for at least a year, unless you've been in the country like a year, like places like Beijing or Hong Kong, because it's so difficult to live there. A lot of the foreigners don't take you seriously until you've been there a year or more. It's kind of like an unwritten rule. I think so-called black men who travel, they tend to avoid the crowds. They like being, a little incognito. They go places that aren't necessarily, and they may travel to a location and pleasure isn't at the forefront. Again, they travel with particular interest, and that's their primary reason for traveling to a location. I had been talking to a brother who went to India. He was doing some kind of I don't know what this brother was doing out there, but he was out there doing some kind of spiritual soul searching, and he was out there for 6 months, traveling around, and he made a lot of friends. So yeah, they live, and they also try to work in foreign cultures. So working in a foreign culture is where you're going to truly be tested. If you're living somewhere, if you're staying somewhere for like 1 or 2 months and you're in your hotel room with a laptop, you're not really interfacing with that culture. So you're missing out on a lot of the interaction with the locals. So I think that those are the main things. I do see like the passport bros, more power to them, more respect to them, but it seems like they are the mind that they seem to be brothers who are more interested in taking vacations, and they're of the mind that they're gonna not necessarily live outside the country. They're just gonna leave the country, United States, perhaps every few months, and take a vacation, and possibly look for amorous relationships with women in other countries. Whereas so-called black men who actually travel and who actually live abroad, they are focused on possibly living outside the country for an extended period of time, learning different languages, learning the culture, and of course they'll take any women that come along with that, but their main focus is on their goals and their personal interests instead. So I just made that because I think that there's this and I think it's going to continue to happen, where a lot of so-called black men are labeled as passport bros when they shouldn't be, when they're just brothers who are out there traveling and seeing the world. All right, peace.